We are now going to go around and introduce ourselves so that everyone knows who everyone else is here, and more importantly, the speakers will know who their audience is. Elaine Chapnick, President of the local summit, and I'll start this around. I think I'll start
Speak right
into the center of this.
Harold Wilson, local summit.
Good morning, Shirley Hilton, Mamaroneck.
Fran Snedeker, Larchmont.
Kate Moody, Larchmont. Ann LeBou, Mamaroneck Board of Ed.
Good morning, Debbie Zanetta, Director of Public Information for Mamaroneck. Melanie Gray, Mamaroneck Board of Ed.
Jeff Megan, Tidbit Chairman.
Janet Buckbinder, the Summit and Radar, and a quick announcement. There will be on April 27th, that's a Saturday, another drug take-back day. So go check your medicine cabinets, clean them out, and bring your medicines that are expired or you don't want anymore to Larchmont Village Hall. The Larchmont Police Department is hosting the site from 10 to 2. That's on Saturday the 27th.
Craig Howell for IYMCA.
Gail Gonzalez, Summit and Hispanic Community.
Judy Dacra.
And a wonderful event.
Oh my God.
Rachel Goldman, Larchmont. Rena Peter, Larchmont Mamaroneck Community Counseling Center, and
Luis Quiroz, Vice Chair, New York State Civil Liberties Union. Jeffrey Wiener, Larchmont Summit.
John Gitless, proud parent of a Rodnick graduate.
Sabrina Fiddleman, Summit, and Hungry Task Force.
Louise Michelle, Summit, and Immigration.
Elizabeth Seymour, Larchmont.
John Bradley, Summit, and At Home on the Sound.
Bob Hayden, Summit, and At Home in the Sound.
Jackie Plumet, Larchmont. St. Francis Rich's Local Summit.
Nancy Gears, Mamaroneck School Board.
Jim Needham, Election Committee candidate for the school board.
Mary Lee Barrett, Interfaith, Women's Club, and Summit. And your money taker, please. If anybody hasn't paid or signed, we would love to have you call.
Jeremy Ingpen, Washingtonville Housing Alliance.
Elizabeth Sanger, Summit Board, and I have a clipboard I'll hand around about fair elections, campaign finance reform, which is very much nonpartisan. In this little packet, I have a few spaces left for signatures if you're interested, and I have an editorial from the New York Times and a article about what campaign finance reform would mean for New York.
Abby Kaz, the Mamaroneck Town Board.
Melinda Lehman, the Hunger Task Force, and Summit.
Sacred Town of Mamaroneck.
And again, was there, Illinois Watchman, morning. Training Councilwoman, Town of Mamaroneck.
I'm fine.
Carolyn Pomerantz, Summit Board, and many other things.
Emily Sleeper, native realtor, and I really knew all the answers.
Good morning, Kim Bucci, Rhinebeck School.
Those three positions for a national health program.
Iris Free Hope Community Services.
Lynette C., local Summit Board, and former Mamaroneck School Board member.
And now I'm going to turn the program over to Lynette. Sorry, did I hit somebody? Keith.
Oh, yeah.
It's off, Lynette. You have to turn it on.
Yep.
Good morning, Keith Geiser, Summit, Mamaroneck Public Schools, and a proud Rhinebeck alum.
I'm going to turn the program over to Lynette right now.
Okay, good morning. It's great to see so many of you here. Once a year, the summit usually likes to get an update from our schools. They're a very, very important part of our community. And this is an appropriate time since the school vote is on Tuesday, May 21st. And hopefully everyone is registered and planning to vote that day. We've built our meeting this morning as the tax cap era, local schools budget battle. New York State schools are in year 2 of the tax levy cap, and along with continuing mandates, increases in mandates, and following several years of actually facing cuts, severe cuts, staffing reductions due to the financial crises, we really are interested in seeing how our schools, our local schools, are faring now with this tax levy cap, and how they're really striving to maintain and even improve the quality of education programs here in this community. So today we're lucky to have our 2 local superintendents, Dr. Peter Mustick and Dr. Bob Chaps. I'll just give you a very brief introduction and then turn it over to them. So I will give you a little bit on each one's background. Dr. Mustick is a lifelong educator. He's probably a rare breed this day, having begun his teaching career in the Rhinebeck School District, and he's been there for now over 30 years, having held a number of positions, starting as classroom teacher, through building principal, assistant superintendent, and currently superintendent. He has led the district as superintendent for over 20 years, and this type of continuity really is very hard to find these days, and very, very valuable. Dr. Mustick holds a number of advanced degrees, including an MBA in finance and a doctorate in education from Teachers College from Columbia University. He is proud to have the privilege of working in a school district that is committed to student success, not only by word but by action. And over the past 19 years, the district has transformed itself into one of the premier districts in the county, improving facilities, faculty enriching curriculum, and improving teaching and learning, and focusing on individual students' strengths. Dr. Mustick's goal continues to be to provide a personalized educational plan for each student, identifying their strengths and offering opportunities for them to explore their talents. You'll hear from him very briefly in just a few minutes. Dr. Chaps is superintendent of the Mamaroneck School District, and this is his 3rd year as superintendent of the schools here. Prior to Mamaroneck, Dr. Chaps served as superintendent of schools in neighboring Hastings and Hudson for 4 years, and before that for 3 years as superintendent of schools in Massachusetts. He began his career in education actually as a men's lacrosse coach at Lehigh University and Washington and Lee University. He then took a break from education and for 9 years worked developing multinational joint ventures in the Eastern European and former Soviet Union countries. After that, he really went back to pursue his passion for teaching and has since then spent time as a special education teacher in New Hampshire, an assistant principal in that New Hampshire school. He then moved to Massachusetts to be a service principal of the Manchester, Essex Regional School District's middle and high school, and soon after that took on his first superintendency there. He holds a number of degrees, including a BA in English from Hobart College, a master's in teaching and learning from Harvard University, and a doctorate of education in educational leadership from the University of Pennsylvania. He grew up in Chicago but moved to this area and graduated from Scarsdale High School and currently resides in Yonkers with his family. He joined us in the midst of the financial crises and has worked extraordinarily hard to minimize the tax rate increase. And in the 4 years he's been here, the average budget-to-budget increase has been held to 1.6% per year. He's raised the bar in terms of teaching and learning expectations and has done a lot of thinking outside of the box to find new ways to strengthen the quality of our schools despite the financial constraints. And you'll be hearing about some of those today. So let me turn it over to Dr. Mustick first.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate your opportunity to be here today.
It's actually my 40th year in Mamaroneck, if I can. I don't believe it either, thank you. I really am. I am really blessed to be in that community. It is an amazing school district with amazing support. And it has really not only been a love and a passion for me, it's really been my life. So it's my family, my friends, everyone is centered around that school district. So for me, it's very special. And frankly, over the last 2 years, I'm really mourning something. And the something I'm mourning is this tax cap. It will slowly deteriorate and destroy what took many, many years and much hard work to build. And what troubles me, I guess, about the tax cap more than anything else, because I have worked with boards repeatedly over the years who have been thoughtful, conscientious, hardworking, worried not only about the quality of the programs, but worried about the community at large. And I see that local control being taken away. The ability for people in their community to make a decision about what they want to happen with their schools is disappearing. And it doesn't matter. The Yonkers superintendent said to me the other day, if you want to see what the tax cap is going to do to your schools, you need to look at our schools now. Because this is what will happen to your schools in a very short order. And truthfully, it will. It's not that Rhinebeck or Mamaroneck won't be great schools. They'll be less great. And they will continue to be less great if we allow this continued nonsense to continue. It's a campaign promise that turned into a reality for schools. With a supermajority in a democratic country, that amazes me that we allow this kind of nonsense to continue. The fact that 60% of the population has to vote in favor of passing a school budget when you exceed this arbitrary cap makes no sense. We had the opportunity to be at the governor's office and to meet with legislators a few weeks ago. And I was saying to someone earlier, it was really frightening to me because I realized something. The fear is palpable in Albany. When people talk about the governor, they're afraid of the governor, and they're afraid of what the governor might do to them if they speak up. Last week we had the opportunity to talk to Regent Harry Phillips, wonderful supporter of public schools, wonderful regent. He's been in our area for many years. Wonderful, supportive, bright man who really means well. And he was talking about this initiative, this state testing, and the problems that it's causing for schools. Today, by the way, is the first administration of that exam today. And I can tell you that our students are panicked, teachers are panicked. For what? We were a high-performing district long before we took on APPR. My students scored in the top 10%. 99% of my students going off to college. We are meeting our mandate of providing a quality program for all students. It's happening. Why now put an arbitrary plan of this testing situation? In my district alone, we received $5,000 in additional state money because of the testing. In the last 2 years, we spent $500,000 getting ready and organizing the tests. Over a percentage point of my tax rate is a result of APPR and taxes. So here's a short story. My grandparents were immigrants to this country, and my father was one of 13 children. 13 live births. My grandmother often would say that she had many more children. The reason she gave as a joke in our family was, the reason she had so many children is my grandfather was an only child that came to this country to go to university. And he always wanted to go back to his family and to Europe, and my grandmother never did. So my grandmother kept saying, as long as I kept having babies, I couldn't go back to Europe. That said, her philosophy was, send your students to school. Make sure all of our kids are educated in this country. Make sure that they get a chance to go to college. She lived to 104. We were very blessed. And all during that time, no matter what, she was very thoughtful about educating not only her children, but her grandchildren and then her great-grandchildren. And consistently, she was wise enough to see that that was the only course that was going to improve the quality, not only for our own family, but for the world to come. When I think about that, and I think about budgets, I said to the community the other day, you have two responsibilities. You have a responsibility to educate the next generation. That's it. That's the first and most important responsibility we have. If we want to continue with the quality of life that we have here in these communities, we must have an educated population. And as we go forward with this process of educating and caring for our next generation, we must also care for those people who live in our community and be thoughtful and careful about those people who have spent their lives trying to stay and build and stay in this community. To that end, we have to watch our taxation and how we're taxing people. So if you can manage to balance both, then you can provide both quality schools for your students and maintain the quality of a long-standing history that we heard about this morning. How do we do that? Well, it's simple. You elect school boards from people in this room, like people in this room, to work real hard to make sure that kids get what they need. And today it's different. They need a lot of unusual things. When my parents and my grandparents went to school, they had a lot of options. If you weren't the brightest student in the class, you could always go off and work with your hands. So there was a trade for you to go off to. And out of the 13, some of my uncles and aunts went off to work in trades. You could also work with your head. You could also go off to college. And there were many opportunities for you to get to colleges. Many students went to free colleges in the city, CCNY, for example, or Hunter. They went to schools and were able to go to free opportunities for them. That provided an opportunity for them to improve and move to a different level. But that foundation started in their local public school. That foundation started in their neighborhood schools. And that ensured that they were successful. Every year, the high school principal and I, Dr. Farrar, meet with every one of our seniors. We have senior exit interviews. They're the clients. Most of them I call them lifers. They've been there for 13 years. We don't have a lot of mobility, as you know, in this region, so a lot of them have stayed. At the end of those conversations this year, as I wrote up all the reports from what we were talking about, a couple of things came up. One was about the quality of the programs, clearly. And secondly was about safety. Are you safe in our schools? Is this a safe environment? What can we do to make it safer? At the end of the conversation, though, what I realized was that the AP Art course that we have and we offer for students, or the AP Calculus course, or the General Math course, has takers in all across the board. Every one of our students had something different, some unique talent that we were tapping in some unusual way. And they needed every single course we offered, because that's what spoke to them. That's what got them hooked into the school. Whether it was that team opportunity, whether it was the musical opportunity, whether it was that particular course or teacher. That's what kept them hooked into the school. And at the end of the session, which takes most of February, by the end of February, I went to the board, we were in the midst of this budget, and I said to them, I'm going to tell you what we need to do. What we need to do is we can no longer cut any programs. Over the last 3 years, we've cut almost $4 million out of our $38 million budget. There is no place to go. So unless we're prepared to exceed the cap, we can't change our schools. They looked, they were concerned, we had a list of cuts. We finally got to, okay, here's the deal. If we're going to cut any more, what I think we need to do at this point is close our high school down and let our students go someplace else so that we can really meet the rigors of this cap. Because the reality is we can't. If we want to provide a quality program, we can't stay within this range. A number of things happened. We're coming in just under the cap this year. But that's not the issue. We came in under the cap last year. The issue is it sustainable? Are we going to be able to continue to do this for any length of time? And it's not complicated. It's not possible. It just can't happen. One of the things we're doing, and there's all sorts of magical tricks. My assistant superintendent, Dr. Kimberly Bucci, is here today, and she's a magician when you talk to her about how we need to save money. And she quickly goes back, and we were talking a lot about how can we make this work for us. So what we decided to do, because there was a real need for us to harden our target, we all realized that we can't secure our facilities. My high school and middle school campus is on 57 acres. We have 450 windows at ground level, doors all over the place, and students walking back and forth along the campus to gym every single period. I had the major in the state police who happens to be a graduate, one of my students, and one of my former students, and a parent in the building. He came and had a long talk with us, and he said, look, there's no way to close this campus down. It's not going to happen. One of the seniors had a great idea. He said to me, Dr. Mustick, I know you're cheap. I said, whoa, wait. He said, I know you're worried about money. I said, yeah, that I am worried about money. He said, I know you're cheap. He said, and I know you like simple solutions. I said, I do. He said, I have a really simple solution for you. I said, what's the solution to security? He said, take the sign away from all of our schools, including the one on the post road, because then nobody will find us. Now, it sounds silly, but the truth of the matter is, it's not so silly when you think about it, because all of our schools have these big, beautiful signs that announce what they are. If you drive along the post road, there's a big, beautiful sign that says Bellows, there's one that says Daniel Warren. If you drive up the post road and you look carefully, you can see the one for Ryan Eck. But he's right. If you just take away the signs, we'll be pretty in. So we decided to use a different approach with our budget. We took all of the security money that we had planned to put in, which was $200,000 to harden our targets. We already had cameras, we already had buzzers, we already had all of those things. The board made a conscious decision. No guns in the halls, no police with guns, no police presence. We'll have a couple of people around that'll just be watching. We did a lot of extensive training with our staff. Our doors are now locked, our classroom doors are locked. We put in panic alarms, so they're at certain desks so we can get the police there. We did a lot of training with police on emergency security. But that's it. The last thing we did was we decided, okay, let's bond for security. So we are setting up a bond at this next budget, which will be $1.4 million, which will be separate and apart from the actual operating budget. And everything we put in the operating budget we took out. This will help us in two ways. It says to the community, if you really feel that this is what we need, this is how you can vote and don't hit the operating budget. First point. Second point is, we get all of the change in today. By next September, should this pass, we'll have all of the equipment that we need in place, the new cameras, the new NVRs, the new security measures that we're putting in. And we'll pay for it over the next 15 years. There's also a benefit under this cockamamie cap that we can actually get some benefit back. Plus, we get 19% state aid on that. So it made good sense. The board thought about it. At first they said, well, we want to float another bond, but after a lot of thought, they said, good idea, let's put it out. Put it out as a separate issue. Parents can say yay or nay. Community can say yay or nay. And it doesn't affect our operating budget. The operating budget, as I said, we were able, as a result of that, to lower our operating budget to come under the cap. But I'm going to say something, and I've said it out in public, and I'll say it again tomorrow night when we adopt our budget. It's not about whether we addressed our cap or not. It's about whether we're meeting our mandate, which is to provide quality educational programs for all students at a reasonable cost for our community. You know, you're a realtor, you work in real estate, you said that. You know very well, the first thing that parents do when they come to a school, when they come to a community is, what are the schools like? What are the test scores? Where are the kids going? We've given tours, I feel like it's, we're like Perillo tours. We've been giving tours to people all over the place. My principals run them every single day. We actually have a plan. We have a realtor package. I do a realtor show where I go to realtor offices. Online, you can pull off realtor information. We have people writing me who are coming from Europe, expats who are coming back or coming to the United States for the first time, looking at various schools. They're shopping schools. Well, that's important for a couple of reasons. For everybody who wants to maintain the quality and the value of their house, for the quality of the communities we live in, and for the quality of what happens for my seniors who want to sell their home. So, for my school district, it's not about the cap. It's about providing a comprehensive educational program that everybody can value from and walk away from. It's about providing and being able to look our graduates in the face at the end of the day and say, you're a success and we appreciate your hard work. And it's about balancing budgets. But I have to tell you, school boards do that really well. They work really hard. They pay the same taxes you pay. In fact, one of my school board members probably pays the most taxes of anyone in our community. And yet, she sits on that school board. She's worried about her taxes. She's worried about the impact of that. Let's leave this control to people who are local. Let's make sure that local people have the ability to make the decision about what's right for not only the kids who we're educating, not only for our next generation, but for everybody in the community. I have some handouts about the particulars and the numbers, and I'll walk around and give them out. If you're interested about the numbers and the security and what you need to do. I would say one thing. This is an advocacy group. You need to encourage people to come to board and hear what we're saying. You need to get people out to vote. In my community, at the bond vote in October, we had 233 parents vote out of a potential 2,500 people. I keep a book on my desk and at every meeting that has every single voter in it. Who votes, not how they vote, I'd like to know, but I can't. But who votes and who votes in that household. I can tell, we have a system. And it's a live system, so every time you go to vote, the instant you vote, it tells me that you voted. I can watch it on my computer. You can imagine what May 21st is like in my office, because I'm watching the voting tallies as they go. That document I use all the time. When a parent has a complaint, I look up the black book first and say to them, I understand your concern about so-and-so, but you haven't voted in the last 3 elections. And it would be really helpful if you would get out and vote. Now some people go, ooh, that's really hard, but you know what's worse? If the budget fails, because somebody didn't take that initiative and vote. It's important to vote. You know, it is a little big brotherish, but it's big brother, I feel, in a good way, because it really does. I have a responsibility to ensure that I have enough opportunities and programs for my students. The way I do that is by ensuring that everybody participates in the vote. I'm also a former social studies teacher, so I believe very strongly in voting, and I believe that if I can help people be a little embarrassed about it, or maybe they'll do it next time. There you go. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Peter, for that entertaining and certainly, I think, important conversation and presentation. I echo Peter's comments around the importance of participating in our democratic right to vote, and certainly encourage all of you who haven't registered yet for the upcoming budget vote in the election. We ask you to certainly stop by our district clerk's office any day to fill out the appropriate paperwork so that you're eligible to vote. Dr. Robert Schaps. And similar to Peter, we are, I think, at an incredibly critical moment in the life of public education and what I would say the institution that has been, as you all well know, around for a very long time. I have to thank Kate Moody because I have a prop, because I met Kate this morning and she was excited to provide me with a copy of her book, which describes in detail the innovative practice of having television in schools in the 1960s. And though it's not a tidbit, I will say it's incredibly important. I think it represents what I believe is important for the future of our schools, that how do we take an institution that has been around since the industrial age and think about innovative practice? How do we kind of in some way position our public school system for the future, so that our students and our families feel that we are investing in them, investing in the institution for what is coming next in their lives. And so I had the pleasure of emailing the board a video clip in the spirit of being first and innovative the other day of a recent graduate who was in China, who met our traveling students in Beijing And it was wonderful to see her speak to and provide advice to 25 high school seniors and juniors about what they could do with their Chinese language skills. And I was so impressed by her fluency and her confidence that it kind of brought me back to this idea of innovation and investing in the future. Mamaroneck is fortunate to be, I think, one of the earliest adopters of a Mandarin program in public education through a Ford Foundation grant in the 1980s. We've had literally thousands of students participating in the middle school and now high school program go on to live or work in China for at least 1 year in their lives and use their language skills to prepare for the future. And it's that spirit of innovation that we continue to think about when we think about what we value, what we believe, and how that translates into our day-to-day practice. So I always say that a budget is a financial articulation of your beliefs and principles, and certainly since I've been in Mamaroneck, worked hard to build on this idea of innovation and preparing students for the future. This year in our budget, we are certainly looking to expand our investment in STEM courses at the high school. We're fortunate to begin a computer science program with a computer science teacher, and this year we have asked the board to support through our budget an expansion of the programs that will include experiences for robotics, for advanced computer science, for app development, along with an investment in what I would say at the middle school for more technology and technology courses. This year, we introduced 3D printing, and I don't know how many of you are aware of a 3D printer, but it actually allows students to design and develop an actual 3D model to spec based on engineering principles. And so we're one of the first districts to adopt in public school 3D printing. And it speaks to the idea of how do we prepare students for the future. One of our larger initiatives that we began 2 years ago as pilot is the idea of harnessing technology to support teaching and learning. And for the last 2 years, all of our 8th grade students have really been focusing on learning Regents Earth Science through the use of the iPad. And so what we find interesting about this is not so much it is about the technology, but it's how our teachers are thinking about redefining their practice, how students as digital natives are thoroughly engaged in using technology for their learning. And it serves as a support mechanism for what I believe will be the future of their lives in a global age. And so this year through our budget, we're interested in expanding a phase-in of a one-to-one computing model that has been very successful not only throughout areas in New York State, but New England and across the country. And focus on this idea of a flipped classroom where students are learning both outside of school and in school, that we're no longer thinking about schools as this place that from 8 to 3 learning takes place. But we're thinking about this expanded idea of learning where learning takes place between 8 to 3 and 3 to 8 at home and anywhere. And so we really believe that as part of our mission, as I said, it is about thinking about redefining the idea of schools, preparing students for the future. At the same time, we recognize that we are a school district of 5,200 students, a diverse school district, and that we need to, in many respects, pay attention to, and as Peter mentioned, be responsible for the success of each child. One of the programs that we've researched and are planning to introduce next year is a dual language program at Mamaroneck Avenue School. We are taking really a closer look at the success of Ossining, of Portchester, of New Rochelle, and White Plains, and thinking about how we can create a dual language classroom to provide proficiency for students in both Spanish and English, and build on that each year. And certainly the research shows, and we're very excited by the opportunity to introduce a dual language program each year, beginning with kindergarten, and hope that we'll have students from all of our elementary schools who will have an opportunity to participate in this special program. Peter mentioned about, in many respects, investing in people to ensure what I would say is the success and the improvement of the schools in their community, and the responsibility we have for our students and our families. I would say that one of the things we're most proud of in Mamaroneck is our investment in the adults, in the people who work in our schools. Schools are about people. They're about our teachers who are committed to the practice of learning and helping students understand and learn and prepare for the future. We, in this, I would say, era of top-down, directed, mandated improvements to APPR to budget, have tried to stay true to our philosophy and our belief systems of what we value in teaching and learning. This year, we have adopted, under the guise of the APPR, a teacher supervision model that focuses on day-to-day observation of teaching practice. This year alone, by the end of our school year, our administrative team of 22 administrators, at both at the building level and at the central office level, will have observed over 3,600 lessons in a school. So we have committed ourselves to providing teachers with immediate feedback in such that every teacher in our school district will be observed 8 times over the course of the year. What that has allowed for is rich conversations between teachers and administrators about improving instruction, focusing on how we help teachers deal with the challenge of transitioning to the Common Core standards, and really focusing on the relationship between children and teachers in the classroom. And we think that is an important philosophy and belief that will in some ways propel and improve our school system going forward. At the same time, I'm sure you've heard about as Peter mentioned, the emphasis on testing and standards tests. As a group of teachers and administrators, early on we adopted and tried to stay true to the philosophy of all in and minimizing the emphasis of tests in the classroom. And so our plan that we sent to the state provides for the minimum requirement for use of tests to evaluate teachers as part of this overall APPR. We have tried to, in some ways, use what we would say is the wealth of data we have on student performance as a guide in our thinking about improving teaching, and in many respects push back against this idea of more testing, tests, and tests. And I think in some ways it's worked to our advantage. The other thing I want to just mention is that we really believe in this year and focused on this idea of growth mindset. We had the opportunity to hear from Peter Johnston, who wrote Opening Minds, and this idea that students come into our schools and we have to embrace where they're at in their educational journey and really work hard with an open and growth mindset to help them improve. And so our teachers had the opportunity to read Opening Minds and really put into practice each day in their classrooms this idea of how do we help students understand the journey they're on, where they are today, and what skills they need to apply to improve. And I think it's been quite transformative for us because how we give feedback to our adults, that is how we help teachers improve their practice, is focused on what they do, not on what they haven't done. And as how we look at our learners, we like to say, where did you find your success and how can we help you meet with future success? And again, it's moving towards this idea that every student can, and our commitment or belief that we need to ensure they will. And that's critically important. Finally, I just want to say that we, in terms of our belief system, really believe how do we each day improve the quality of our school system in a sustainable and fiscally responsible manner. And so as we've tried to put our budgets together over the last 3 years, we have been mindful of the fiscal challenges, the challenges to our taxpayers, and tried to ensure that every dollar that is invested into our school is efficiently used, and it corresponds to what we want to accomplish in our school system. And I'm very proud of the fact that not only we have reduced and saved millions of dollars over the last several years as part of our budget process, that we've looked for efficiencies through the use of technologies, efficiencies in how we've repurposed staff throughout the district to ensure that we are efficient and effective in how we use the money that comes from taxpayers in this community. And it's something that we continue to do and think about, not only in terms of green sustainability, in terms of reduction of paper and use of technology, but to think of creative ways that we can look at our taxpayers with pride to say not only are we building the best school system possible, but we are mindful of how you are investing in supporting our schools, and I think that's critically important. We don't know what the jobs of the future will look like. We don't know what work will look like. But what we can do, and what we do each day in Mamaroneck, is focus on the skills that students will need, whether it's collaboration, communication, critical thinking, that we feel when they leave us, they will be positioned to go forth in confidence and really engage the world. And I think as I watch the tape of Liza Strauss in China, it's evident to me that we have done our work and done our job of preparing our students. And our journey and our mission going forward is to continually think differently, and as Lynette mentioned, outside the box, about reinventing our public school system so that we can be around for another 100 years. And I certainly can't say that I don't know if I'll be there, or if I can say that I'll be in Mamaroneck as long as Peter's had a wonderful, successfully tenured Rhinebeck. But I think it's important to know that we have a group of talented teachers, administrators, and in our community, and we're very proud of what we do. And certainly we appreciate the support of the community to pass our budgets and to allow us to think about how we help our students for the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. We appreciate your time today and your thoughtful stewardship of our schools. If you are available for a little while, we'd like to take some questions.
Sure.
Okay.
I have a comment and a question. My daughter graduated from Mamaroneck and thrived there. She was a student of Mandarin and went to China with program. She's now an epidemiologist in Alberta, in Edmonton, where there's such an intensive population of Chinese immigrants that she's taking up Mandarin again to enhance her job. So that's yet another reason to take Mandarin and another use of Mandarin for the future of your kids. My question is derived from an article in yesterday or today's Journal News that Glenbrook is encouraging students from outside the district to tuition in. And I wonder if that's a possibility for, or a good thing, would be a good thing for Mamaroneck to do too.
Yes, I'm not sure if everybody heard the question. It referenced, the question was specific to have, similar to the article in Journal News yesterday, Blindbrook seeking tuition-paying students, has Mamaroneck, or certainly Rhinebeck, considered tuition? We have, and for a very long time, accepted tuition students to our district. Certainly based on availability, but we do have a number of students who tuition into our school system and participate both at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. And I would say
We have not accepted tuition students to Rhinebeck.
and also currently pay tuition, and some of them pay tuition based on the change in terms of the agreement at the board level. But so we certainly welcome and look forward to, with space availability, the opportunity to tuition students. Thank you.
We have stopped our faculty from a number of years ago from sending their children to our schools. It was costing us money. Well, if you think about it, it's a student who might come with high special needs from another district that we would be providing the service for that they could receive at home. It ended up costing the district money, so we made that decision.
I think this conversation that you're having is very good, and it's good information. But what I would like to see is a sort of a debate because there was a lot of statements and paragraphs that you mentioned that are debatable. You know, for example, the way public schools go in this country is the way the United States is going to go. 100%. What happens here will happen to the United States. I have a concern when we talk about the situation that we're in now. I know the situation that we're in now. Everybody in this room that the dialogue is directed to is an architect of where we are now. It's not like it just happened and now we have 2%. We have a tax cap. This was predictable in the mid-1990s, the way they were going, the way the public schools were going, and funding were going. For example, you mentioned the word sound basic education. The legal definition of a sound basic education during the 1980s and 90s was a 7th grade education, and then we got involved, the New York State Civil Liberties Union and other advocates, to change that mindset and that definition. We all want a sound basic education, but the resources are not distributed democratically. And you know, like the Republicans now are talking about trying to get the Latino vote. Well, because they're going to keep losing. In the same, please, this is important, okay? Now school districts are trying to open up with, for example, dual language In the mid-1990s, when I ran for school board, I predicted this, if you read the minutes, and I said, unless we have dual language in American Avenue schools starting early where it wouldn't be as expensive, we're going to get to this situation. A lot of the architecture and planning is predictable because there was no critical thinking. It was monitored and geared only for a certain group of students. We are the designers of what we are now.
Do you have a question for them?
Yes, last question. At some point, I think it would be valuable to the community and fair for democracy that we have a debate on all the terminology and all the words used, because people are not going to miss. The people are missing what you're saying, and your articulation was great, wonderful, emotional. You got us to, nod our heads. But there's another side to this that is being overlooked, and I think that, we need to go to the other side and find out, how do we get here? How are we going to get out? The same thing with security money. This was predictable, what was happening, and the flood, and the transportation.
Thank you. Any questions?
Nothing comment.
Would you like to comment on that?
I would just certainly comment about the dual language program. Our interest in dual language is really focused on our commitment to understand research-based practices. And we have, over the last several years, looked at the research on dual language and find that students who enter that program fare very well in comparison to students at the grade level who are not involved. And so we're actually excited to be able to pilot and use innovative ideas to see if it will help support all students. And so this is the first year, and I appreciate Luis's statement about thinking about innovative practices, and we're very proud to push this forward.
And from our perspective, I think we're always looking at problem-solving skills. A student who's able to meet the challenges of the world, be able to prepare for what his talent or her talent might be, and we emphasize that as we go forward in our process.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no argument there.
Right. I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Bob's hogging the mic. I know. What happens when you sit
My
with Bob.
concern is the situation with the counseling, the extra help needed for the students today, and the degree to which you're facing cuts, I think, of guidance personnel, the ancillary services that come with things like the community counseling center, the guidance center of New Rochelle. These groups that have been so part of helping the needy students, and if ever we had needy ones, I think we realize it's more. To what extent can you see groups like ours try to advocate more to be supportive as you face whether it's the 2% cap, how much is being lost in these support things at this time when we're also worried about the students that are upset or feeling left out or stressed? What can groups like ours do to help you more?
From my perspective, and I mean this very seriously, you understand the value of people participating. You understand and you take action and actually do that. What I find is that most people don't. So we need to activate people to understand what the consequences are of what's happening today. So yes, we need this group to actively go out and publicly talk about voting, learning about budgets, participating in the dialogue, finding out what the issues are. I mean, something as horrific as Newtown brought the communities together because people started talking about some of the problems that we're seeing. The incident that happened in Boston yesterday, I was watching the television last night, and I was watching a former police commissioner, a fire commissioner in New York talk about it, and he said, well, the good news is this will re-energize people to the conversation around security because we become complacent. And I think that's what happens. We're trusting that our schools are doing a good job, we're trusting that we live in safe communities, we're trusting that everything is fine, and we get very complacent about this. We don't realize that the next generation of parents doesn't see the same urgency that you've all lived through, doesn't see the struggles that you've all lived through. And I think that's the key for me, is passing that history along in a meaningful way and making sure that they get out there and do what they need to do.
Just to add, I feel very fortunate to be a part of a school system in a community where there are a number of resources that have grown and programs that have developed to support students and families. And so certainly helping us advocate to maintain those programs, the guidance center, certainly community counseling, but we also are looking out for affiliations with organizations that don't cost money. We're going to participate in a training program through NIMI about mental health issues for our teachers and parents, and so that we can look and for and recognize the signs of students and families that are having difficulty. One of our beliefs is how do we take a large school system and really turn it into a small place where every adult knows every child. And I think it is about the awareness of the emotional and mental well-being of our students and support for our families that is a critical ingredient to our success. And so I think what I would say is I appreciate certainly your support to ensure that we maintain the programs and the resources that are available within this community and outside of us, and help find other opportunities that we can partner so that we can really not only take care of our students in the classroom, but ensure their emotional and mental well-being as well. And that's critically important.
I have a related question. Excuse me. Now, I understand at the federal level, I'm not sure about the state level, where there's gun control, we shouldn't use those words, but in other words, that there is a mental health aspect to that. I mean, is there any way, or are you people trying to apply for funds from that part to enhance these programs for guidance? You know, as let's say, under the rubric of preventing gun violence, but also for mental health and counseling service, with the goal that is said to prevent violence. But can that be used to increase these ancillary services? Thank you.
I would say that we look for every opportunity in terms of grants and federal programs to be able to, in some ways, find additional resources. I don't know if you heard me. That we continue, we have a number of federal grants and we continue to look for opportunities to use federal dollars to.
Is there any new money coming from this?
I know that the state is talking about new money in the next budget for, as Peter mentioned, for reimbursement for safety improvements. I haven't heard yet for mental health at this point.
And we've looked at the state monies for safety, and we don't qualify for that. We don't, and mental health, we don't look, and at this point, no, there is no new money coming down from the state or the federal government. Actually, nothing that we've seen to date. Nothing that we've seen to date.
Okay. The county has taken an unusual budget step recently, which was county government, to bond their pension costs. And so they could continue to fall below the cap. What is your perspective on that as a policy, and how do you feel if that applies to the schools or not?
It's kicking the can down the road. It's kicking the can down the road, and that's not what our school board wanted to do. We had a lot of conversation about that. It's the qualifier to do that is not only do you get a reduced rate in your retirement, but then you pay interest to the state as this moves forward. So basically, you're not only kicking the can down the road, but you're kicking it down with an extra kick of interest. So it is not responsible budgeting.
Just to add, I think what troubles me the most about the policies that's coming from Albany or these new ideas is it's really dealing with symptoms and not the problem. Right. And so, I'm very proud in terms of our work this past year. We just completed a new contract with our teachers that provided with a 2-year salary freeze that really has helped with this budget. And certainly what we're interested in, I believe, is thinking not about the symptoms, but to deal with the structural, what I would say, impediments or problems that in some ways will not allow us to remain viable and sustainable. So I'm very much interested in thinking differently about collective bargaining agreements, of how we can have sustainable contracts, how we think of the issues of health benefits and our retirees and our long-term obligations. And I think it's turning the equation around, so to speak, thinking about innovative practices that will kind of structurally change things, as opposed to, again, kicking the can or dealing with the symptoms of our problems. And I think that's the way we want to approach it. But we certainly feel we need a partnership and take advantage of the resources that we have in the community about people who are doing this in the private sector and think differently about structural issues.
I have to say that we have, the superintendents have formed a coalition with Long Island and the suburban school districts in Long Island, because we realize that the suburban school districts in Long Island and Westchester County have the similarities. What we heard from George repeatedly was, I'd like to help, but we're just a small group and we need a larger group. So we went and found like-minded playmates. And we got together with superintendents out on Long Island. We represent 199 schools, 700,000 students. And to that end, we have now developed over the last 2 years a group called the Tri-Region Coalition of schools. And we started with superintendents. This last year, a group of parents in my community put letters up on our website and wrote letters to the legislators via email and via snail mail. And that seemed to have an impact, because then George could walk into a room and say, I have this letters from my constituency that say this is a bad idea. This year, that has grown, and I've been working with Dr. Laura Allen, Superintendent Ardsley. We've developed a coalition for Southern Westchester County, and in 2 weeks we're going to Long Island to train parents about advocacy. So on our letters, on our website right now, there are 4 letters that went off to the various legislators and the governors, and that set a direction. And we heard from each of the legislators that that was an important first step. What I found this year when we went to Albany to advocate was, I think it's important to have boots on the ground. We need people in Albany screaming, because the day that I went, we had a special meeting with the legislators, the senators in the assembly, this group from the suburban schools. And when we were in the Capitol, what I realized as I watched around was there were groups with placards walking around. There was the travel industry screaming about their fair share, and there was somebody else screaming about their fair share. And what I realized at the end of the day was, we need boots on the ground. So what we're doing with this organization, this group of parents, is getting them to organize around how do we get to Albany and have our voices heard. And that's what it takes. It takes people in the face of legislators and the governor and saying, we don't want this. It's not for everybody. I mean, the governor's a very popular governor when you read all the statistics, because he has these wonderful sound bites. The new New York. Yeah, the new New York is going to be great, except that students won't be educated, garbage won't be picked up, but, you know, he'll be off doing the presidency somewhere, hopefully not in America, but he'll be doing it somewhere else. So I think what we heard from our legislators and what we heard from people was, get people up there, have your voices heard. It does mean something when you contact the legislature. It does mean something when you send a letter. It does mean something when you speak to people. But it's action. It requires people to take action.
Harold.
I have a question. First of all, I'm a person who has voted for every school board that's come down, every school budget that has come down the pipe, and I expect to vote for this one. But I have a mathematical question for you two gentlemen. This is a community that's very pleasant, elderly people to stay in retirement. My question is this: what quantity of assets do you believe elderly residents would need to continue to live in this community when they depend on income from sure things like certificates of deposit and other things? How much assets do you think they need to live here?
I think it would depend on Social Security doesn't do it, I'm sure.
Right. I mean, I can't necessarily answer that and quantify it for you, but I can say that the board, and I certainly know the administration, and I think certainly from Peter's perspective, that we recognize the fiscal challenges and the hardship of our taxpayers. And that's why I think when we build our budget, and when we think about long-term sustainability, we take into account that we want people to remain in our communities and support our schools. And that's where how can we think about innovative practices and efficiencies that at least go a long way to help people stay here. And so that's the reality here. And that's why we want to look at structural changes and thinking long-term, so that we aren't here each year complaining about the moment, but be able to say, here's what we've actually done to make sure that we have multiple generations of people living within our community. Part of it is the strength of our school system. Right. Part of it is maintaining the quality of our schools to attract people, to help support the schools. But part of it is being mindful of what does it cost to educate a child, and how can we think to maintain the quality, but at least do it in an efficient and cost-effective manner. So that's my best answer to that.
Okay, we promised these gentlemen that they could leave by 9 and get back to their offices. So I thank you very, very much for coming. I know they're both publicly available, so if you have other questions, I'm sure that you can reach them at their offices. And I thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you.